Hello again, Dr. Carver with you here. We are going today to talk about, to continue with the anatomy and physiology number 2. And today we will focus on the lymphatic system. Why this is very important? This is very important to study this lymphatic system because for if you go, so the doctor can evaluate if you become a doctor in the future, following the function, understanding the function of this lymphatic system, you can evaluate the patient's signs of infections. You remember what I told you earlier in the previous chapters about the blood vessels, that they have some, if I believe, 3.6 liters of interstitial fluid that came up from that plasma that got out into the tissue. It's no longer plasma because this solution is leaving the blood, so we don't call it plasma anymore, and it is now in the interstitial fluid. This interstitial fluid is going to return into the blood, but before that you have to go through this lymphatic system to be clean, so the blood can circulate with no debris, no pathogens on it, as clean as possible. So it's about how much it returned to the blood circulation, about 3.6 liters a day that should be returned. So once this fluid, this interstitial fluid, is within this lymphatic system vessels, we call it lymph. So lymph is this interstitial fluid that now is no longer called interstitial fluid, but we name it lymph because it's within a lymphatic vessels. So if this lymphatic, if this interstitial fluid is stuck there within the tissue, it does not go and it go to the lymphatic system. It will cause, if it's stuck there, it will cause some swelling, some edema, which is abnormal situations, correct? So we have to go through this lymphatic system and return to the plasma. So therefore, let's recapitulate. So we have blood plasma, all right? The plasma that is in the blood vessels that's leak out from those vessels into the tissue, and it's become now interstitial fluid. And once they enter the lymphatic vessels, we will call it lymph. It's like you right now, I'm talking to you, are my student, right? But if you are, for example, you are working at Starbucks, you are an employee. So it's different. This fluid have different name depending on its localization. It's a plasma. When it's within the plasma, blood plasma. It's interstitial fluid when it's within the tissue, and it's become a lymph when it's within the lymphatic vessels. So the lymphatic system returns the fluid from, as I said, from the blood vessels, and back to from the blood vessel back to the blood. It's like a circle, isn't it? And this lymphatic system, it consists of 3 parts. We have the network of lymphatic vessels, and we have the lymph that is within these vessels, and also we have some structure that cleans those lymph. We call that lymph nodes, okay? So the lymphatic system include the lymph, the lymphatic vessels, the lymphatic tissue. We will talk about the lymph node, the thymus, the Tencel. We will talk also about this Biopatch in the intestine, the appendix. And the function, as I said, it return the fluid to the bloodstream. And because those lymph node cleans also, it provides a structural basis of immune system by housing phagocytic cells and lymphocytes. All right. So let's start on here. Let's look at this slide. And starts exactly on these pictures over here. You see this is a fibroblast connective tissue, right? And this big over here, it's a lymphatic capillary. Lymphatic capillary, it's this green thing. It's just a single layer of endothelial cells. Single layer of endothelial cells. This is the lymphatic capillaries. Those green things you see here, this is blood vessels red and blood vessels blue. All right. Arterial system that's bringing the blood from the heart, capillaries, vessels, blood capillaries, all right, meet with the alveoli, and you will see those blood is going back through the venous system, going back to the heart. And also you see this lymphatic system is also been leaking, some leaking fluid become interstitial here, right? It is interstitial. This is full of fluid and leaked plasma protein. So those leaked plasma protein, they go through those capillaries, those lymphatic capillaries, and they travel all the way, right? And they go, when they are traveling, they are going up back to the heart through the venous system. They are actually going through those lymph nodes to be cleaned. So we go back here. So this is a single, as I said, endothelial cells, and there are some things very interesting on it. It's very weird. Those endothelial cells, they overlap on each other, and the overlapping and they create kind of a mini valve. To form this, so they overlap to form those mini valves, and within those mini valves, they are attached to some filament, all right? So they can attach to this surrounding connective tissue. So what's happening is that the extracellular fluid gets in, push in through those valves, came inside the capillary, this lymphatic capillary. And remember that each valve, it's always one way. It just work one way, all right? So it's open there. The pressure is so high that is going to open those valves. Those valve is pushing the fluid coming inside the capillary, and as soon as the fluid is inside of the capillary, those valves close. So this ACF or extracellular fluid will become intracellular fluid now. Is within the lymph. It's become a lymph now. It's within the capillary, lymphatic capillaries. So we call it now lymph. And this lymph is going to start carrying by these capillaries and these lymphatic vessels toward the heart. toward the bloodstream than to reach the heart, right? It's only those lymph work only in one way. And those nodes, as I said, cleans up this fluid. And once once this fluid, that is lymph, is within the blood vessel, we call it plasma again. And the circle, this is why we have it like a closed loop over here. It's like a little circle, right? Those lymph capillaries, we find them almost everywhere. And in the intestinal parts, we have a specialized capillaries. We call those lacteal capillaries that they are present only in intestinal mucosa. And what is this speciality is to absorb fat and lipid from the blood into those lymphatic capillaries that we call lacteals. And those lymph, we call it, it's a fatty lymph, we call it chyle. Remember this name because I am going to use it again. We call it chyle. And once this chyle been cleaned up with within the lymph nodes, it will return to the blood, right? So let's move to the next slide. What this slide is showing me a gentleman that is color-coded. You see one part that is light green. You see a lot of green over here. All this green, that's the lymphatic system. All those green things, that's lymphatic system. Lymph nodes and lymphatic vessels, all right? But you see here that this part, it's like green, and this part is like light red. All right. So the lymph is delivered from the trunk into one or two large lymphatic ducts. The most major lymphatic ducts, we have two. We have the right lymphatic duct and the thoracic duct. Let's focus on the first one, the right lymphatic duct, which is this light green over here. This light shaded green over here, okay? But first of all, this right lymphatic duct, where he got his lymph from? He collects the lymph from the right jugular trunk, the right subclavian trunk, all right? So he received the lymph from the right jugular, exactly from the right neck, and from the right subclavian trunk, from the right of all upper appendage, and the skin of the posterior and anterior thorax. And he drained into the upper and the right hand, upper arm, and the right side of the head and the thorax. So what's happened if I have a tumor or blockage in the right lymphatic duct? The patient will get a swelling. I saw some patients that they have a right part of their lip, of their mouth swollen because of a blockage in the right lymphatic duct. We also have over here what we call bronchio-mediastinum tract. It's not labeled, but this is this part. We have the right and we have the left part. It drains lymph from the right thoracic cavity and you can see the lymph from the right lung. It also drains into the right you can see also, you can also see that the lung also drain into the right lymphatic duct, the right lung, the right part of the lung, not the left. Those lymphatic vessels travels with arteries. Especially the deep lymphatic vessels. The collecting lymphatic vessels, those large lymphatic vessels, we call that collecting lymphatic vessels, they always travel, the superficial of them travel with the veins, but the deep vessels travel with arteries. This is really very funny because some of the lymphatic vessels are so big that they have to have their own blood vessels to supply them with nutrients. The wall of the lymphatic vessels is really supplied by those vessels that we call vasorum, which are blood vessels in the wall of the large lymphatic, and they are the ones that will supply the nutriment to those deep lymphatic vessels, which is kind of weird. So recapitulation, the large lymphatic vessels, we call them collecting lymphatic vessels. They always travel with the vein, the superficial of them, but the deep vessels travel with arteries. And the largest one, they are connected, they have their own blood vessel. We call that vasa vasorum, which supply this those vessels, the lymphatic vessels, with the nutrients. I go back to this slide. Then we have the next duct, which is The thoracic duct. The thoracic duct is going to drain all the rest of the body. I mean, from the left side of the head, the neck, the upper left upper arm, anything that you see are light red coded. The thoracic duct drain those apart. Where they got their lymph from? You collect the lymph from the other part, the left bronchomediastinal trunk, the left subclavian trunk, the left jugular trunk, and he emptied them into the left subclavian vein. So the thoracic duct drain the rest of the body. Left part of your head, left part of your neck, left lower appendage, and also both upper appendage, right and left, and the entire abdomen. And the left part of your thorax, including the left part of the lung. And if we keep going down, it starts what we called over here cisternae chili. You remember what is chili, right? You remember I told you to retain this name, which is the lymph, fat lymph, right? And cisternae means reservoir. It's like cisternae of water. It's like a storage, right? So cisternae receive its lymph from both left and right lumbar trunk. I'm going to making it bigger, and we are going to follow the cisternae, getting from right and left lumbar, from the abdominal part, also. It serves also to draw lymph up. You see it? The lymph is coming from the lower limb up anti-gravity, against the gravity. And this is influenced by the lymph pressure to your thoracic cavity. I have it here in bigger. Right and left lumbar, and going to your thoracic cavity, right and left. Okay. How the lymph is transported? I have no problem when it's coming from the head, right? From the head is going down. It's not against the gravity. But what when it's going up? When it's going down, we have no problem. All right. When it's going up, this is it's under the influence with some lymphatic pressure. Remember that the lymph vessels have a valve, so those valves will close to make a lymph moving only in directions. All right. So the lymph system, but the lymph system, the lymph pressure is very low as compared as the blood pressure, like the venous system. It's really very low. But it's proper in the same mechanism. It's memed it's milking, I mean, by the skeletal muscles. It's also, yeah, breathing also can influence the lymph movement, of course, and the palpitations of nearby arteries, and also the contractions of small muscles in the wall of the lymphatic vessels. All right. So we are going to move to the next. We are going to talk about the lymphoid cells, tissue, and organ. Let's start with the cells. The cells, lymphoid cells, consist of immune system cells found in the lymphoid tissue and supporting cells that are from lymphoid tissue structures. The most important one are the immune cells, like T cells, that they manage the immune response by attacking the cells, infected cells directly. The B cells, they attack the infected cells by secreting antibodies. All right. So, and the macrophage, they engulf, the phagocytize the foreign or substance or those pathogens and help activate also the T cells. And we have also the dendritic cells that capture antigens and deliver them to the lymph node. So the lymph node will cleanse that and they will help activating the T cells. The supported lymphoid cells, they are made of reticular cells that produce reticular fibers called stroma in lymphoid organ. The stroma is a network like protein that acts as scaffolding for immune cells. All right, so of course from cells we move to tissue. And for tissue, the main function is to house and provide proliferations for the lymphocytes. And of course, they play a role as defense. It's largely composed of all of reticular connective tissue, which is a type of loose connective tissue. Two main of lymphoid tissue. We have diffuse lymphoid tissue and we have compact solid lymphoid follicles. We call that follicle. Those diffuse lymphoid tissue, they are found in almost every organ in our body. And they have a large lamina propria of mucous membrane. Those nodules, the lymphoid follicles, they are solid, they are spherical. They contain a germinal center that will help producing B cells. They are, I mean, the most important aggregations of nodal, this is the Biopatch and the Biopatch in the intestine in the appendix. So let's look at the localization of these lymph nodes that play a role on cleaning the lymph. They play a role like filtrations. You see, they have macrophage that remove the destroy microorganism. Before even, you see this is very nice. Before even those lymph go back to the blood vessel, they have to clean, right? So it's a prevent unwanted substance to reach to our blood system, to our bloodstream. And he also stimulates the immune system's activations. So let's look at the more the lymph node where they are aggregations of it. I mean, we have the axillary nodes, like a network. It's just a node, a lot of nodes over here. We have the cervical node. Look at that, all over the body, but most of them, they are like clustered over here, axillary, cervical node, and we have inguinal nodes. All right, I want you to retain those. So what is the structures of lymph node and how it play a role on cleaning the lymph, right? So the lymph node, it's like a bean shape, and it's surrounded by a capsule, fibrous capsule. So the fibrous, it's a fibrous that will give it the form, all right? So the capsule fiber extend inward in the trabeculae that divided, here you go, fibrous capsules that will go inward, extended to become trabeculae, and those trabeculae, there are two parts that they are very important that are going to be divided. We have the cortex and the medulla. Cortex and the medulla. The cortex, the superficial area of the cortex contain follicles. See those lymphoid follicles? They are very rich on B cells. They have germinal cells center that they will produce a lot of B cells. The deep cortex hosts the T cells and circulate continuously among the blood, the lymph node, and the lymph. We will talk earlier about the circulation of the lymph within this lymph node. Let's continue with the histology. Here is again another. Sorry, I'm jumping. Then after the cortex, we have the medulla, right? That's the medulla with the medullary cord that extend inward. The medullary cord extend inward from from the cortex and contain B cells and T cells and plasma cells. We have also a lump sinuses that are found here. The most important one is the supracapsular sinus. And this span it consists of large lymphatic capillaries that span by crisscrossing the reticular fibers. Supracapsular sinus. Making it big over here. Okay. So now, how do nerves circulate in the lymph node? If you look at it, you see they have some vessels over here, lymphatic vessels. They are afferent lymphatic vessels. And look at the valve. And we have efferent lymphatic vessels. It's very funny, if you notice, we have more afferent lymphatic vessels than efferent lymphatic vessels. And for the only reason is when the lymph enters the node, by the afferent lymphatic vessel, it travels through this large supracapsular sinus, and then enter, it's not labeled over here, but he enter actually to the smaller sinuses found through the cortex and the medulla. And then he reached the medullary sinuses, and he will get cleaned up over here. It will take time. And then after he cleans up, he will leave the node through an hilum via the efferent lymphatic vessels. The presence of fewer efferent lymphatic vessels cause the flow to somehow stay longer inside so he can be cleaned. But remember that this lymph will go through travel through several nodes before he reaches the blood vessels. Okay? Now we move to the lymphoid organs. Anything that you see like is making sure. Anything that you are seeing a yellow flashing, those are the lymphoid organs. We have the primary lymphoid organs. Those are the area where the T and B cells matures, like the red bone marrow and the thymus and the red bone marrows. The T and B cells, just to making sure, originate in the bone marrow, but only B cells mature here. The T matures in the thymus. Okay, just to making sure. And we have also secondary lymphoid organs, area where mature lymphocytes first happen, they meet their corresponding antigens. You know that antibody with antigen make a sandwich, interact, right? So the antibody can kill this antigen. This is the secondary lymphoid organs where mature lymphocytes first encountered. Those secondary lymphoid organs are nodes, spleen, and all the mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue, the MALT. So let's focus. I will come back to those Biopatch, which is the aggregation of lymphoid nodules in the small intestines. And I will come back to the appendix too. Let's focus on the spleen. The spleen is very, very rich on the blood vessels. It's localized in the left side, as you can see here. Below the stomach, that's the stomach over here, that's the liver. That's the stomach. And below the stomach, that's the spleen in the left side. History. I'm sorry, I have a technical issue, so let's continue. So the spleen, as I said, function is the site of the lymphocyte proliferation and immune surveillance. It's clean the blood of aged blood cells and platelets, and macrophage remove debris over there. And it also store breakdown red blood cells for later reuse, store blood platelets, and monocytes for release into the blood when needed. And this is really very interesting. You know, when in fetal development, we don't have the bone marrow, we don't have bones yet. So where the fetal blood came from? We think it came from the spleen, beside also the liver. So the spleen may be the site for fetal erythrocyte productions. Here in this site, I show you a diagram of spleen histology, very, very rich in blood vessels. You have here the splenic arteries and splenic vein that branches into central arteries and central veins, right? And within the central artery around it, you see that's what we call white pulp. Site of immune functions happen over here. It's mostly lymphocytes on reticular fibers, and also the red pulp, very rich on red blood cells. So this is why it appears red. Those white pulp are mostly is made of lymphocytes. All right, so then we move to the thymus. Thymus is very funny as organ. He's an organ that he can disappear with the age. More you are growing, more it's I mean, when you become older, your thymus is maybe completely disappeared. So this is why your immune system for older people, because it's very important. Look at it, what he have. He contain lymphocytes, macrophage. He regulates also T cells. So once you become older, you become your immune system is reduced because some of those immune system that play a role on defending you, they are already not there. So, like for example, lack of the thymus and other lymphocyte system, so you are susceptible to develop infections. And also when you are younger, also your immune system is not well developed either. So yeah, so I don't know, it's between very young and old, this is when your immune system, it's much better to increase your defense against pathogens. So let's look at the histology. We have, as I said, thymus is broken into lobules that contain outer cortex and, of course, an inner medulla. Cortex contain lymphocytes and macrophage. The medulla contain also some lymphocytes and some thymic corpuscle that you are seeing over here. Let me making it bigger. Those thymic corpuscle that you are seeing here within the medulla, they are very important because they regulate the T cells. They prevent them from autoimmunity. As you can see, we don't see any follicles in the thymus and does not fight directly the antigens, so they don't have a B cells. All right, and then after that, we pass to the Tencels. Tencels, it's very simple lymphoid organ. He form lymphatic tissue around the pharynx. They appear as a swelling of mucosa. The Tencels function is to remove pathogen in the food or in the air that you are breathing. So before even the air reach your lung, He is going to play a role on cleaning this air. It contains follicle with germinal centers. So we have some lymphocyte B on them, and they are not fully encapsulated. And we have what we call the invaginations of the epithelium, and we call that a crypt, tonsillar crypt. Very funny and very weird. Because you remember what I told you, that his job is to clean the food, remove the pathogen from the food and from the air. So those tonsillar crypts, they actually trap those pathogen and destroy them when they enter those crypts. And we have, following the location, we have palatine tensils that they are posterior of the oral cavity. We have lingual tensils that they are at the base of the lung, lingual. And we have pharyngeal tensils that they are localized posterior wall of the nasopharynx. And we have the tubal tensils that they are surround the opening of the auditory tubes into the pharynx. All right, so the most important is that contain germinal centers. They have those crypts, tonsillar crypts that remove pathogen and destroy them. Yeah. And they also allow the immune cells not only to destroy them, but they allow them to develop memory, to be activated and build memory cells against those pathogen, potential pathogen. Then we move to the next one, which is the mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue. We find them in the through the body, tonsil, Biopatch, appendix. They protect, of course, against pathogen. The Biopatch, they are cluster of lymphoid follicles in the distal portion of the small intestine. Look at that, in the distal portion of the small intestine. They are also called aggregated lymphoid nodules. Function is to destroy bacteria. You're going to see them a lot there from the intestinal wall. You're going to see them a lot there. This is why they are this is why there are cluster of them in the distal part of the intestine, because this is the digestions. This is very important to get read. Remember that 70% of our immune system is in our gut that do it. 70% of the immune defense that we got is from our gut, our gastrointestinal tract. And this is why they are very abundant over there, those Biopatch, those aggregation of lymphoid nodules, to destroy those bad bacteria and degenerate memory lymphocytes against potential pathogens. So the reason, or this is the biggest reason why those Biopatch are clustering in the wall of the distal part of the small intestine, because 70% of our, as I said, of our system, immune system, is in our gut. Then we have the appendix, contain large number also of lymphoid follicles. They destroy bacteria, of course, and degenerate memory lymphocyte. the same thing that Biopatch. So those people that they have the appendix removed and the tonsils removed, I mean, they have other organs that will play a role in defending them, but this immune system is getting slower. So on here, this is a summary of all what we saw here today. And thank you so much, and we'll see you for the next chapter. And again, if you have any questions, never hesitate to email me or text me. Bye.